Welcome to the Barker Podcast Collection.
I suck, you suck, I suck at Call of Duty.
Welcome to the Not Playing Podcast. My name's Rob Howard and today I'm joined by
Marcus Hurley.
And
Will.
We come to that time once again where we are counting through our favourite games of the year, last year being 2020. What a year that was. But you can't deny, video games still had a pretty good one, despite the delays.
In the end.
And
Second half was definitely better.
Yeah, you know, and not to skip ahead, I think probably going to be the same again this year, but yeah, we're going to count through our top threes. We're just doing top threes this year, and we've got some honourable mentions afterwards, and then we'll talk about maybe some of the things we're looking forward to in 21 and probably beyond. So, okay, who would like to start?
Don't all leap in at once. I'll crack on then. Okay, so my one of the finest games I played this year, without a doubt, but also in many ways the least fun, which is why it hasn't ranked higher, was The Last of Us 2. And I've been umming and ahhing about where I would put this and put other games above and behind it. But I listened back to the recording after we'd just finished that game and the recording when we were currently playing it. And what I'd forgotten was the sheer thrill of every fight, every breathtaking moment of genuinely feeling like you were scrabbling for existence in a fight, panicking, hiding, searching through for scrap, for ammunition to try and help you make it. The pacing of that game was magnificently done. The story was very, very good. The length was painful, to be fair, and that's not the first time I've said that. But it was a very, very well-made game. Exceptional production values. The gameplay was great. The storytelling was great. But, and I have to say this, I really didn't have fun playing that game. I was torn between choking up over the story and terror in the fights, and with occasional elements of Christ, will this ever actually finish? But it was a cracking game, and definitely well worthy of being mentioned as one of the games of the year for me.
Yeah, I mean, I was kind of fighting with this and something else as my favourite game of the year. In the end, spoiler alert, it's my number 2, but we'll talk about it here since we've started. Basically, I agree with you completely. It was a fucking ordeal, that game, at the best of times.
It was a slog.
It was, but I tell you what, the reason why it felt that way, I think quite apart from like the harrowing subject matter, was the fact that the gameplay sort of didn't have that much of an arc, you know? You didn't really progress that much along the duration.
You didn't end up as a god, let's face it, as you do in some games.
No. At
no point did I ever feel invincible. The whole time I felt vulnerable.
And I guess that was intentional, but over the length of it, I think, the fact that it's kind of got that sort of double act structure, you know, it's kind of a game of two halves very much with two very different protagonists. So, but I think it was definitely story first. Yes. That's what a lot of Sony exclusives are all about. And there were some genuine twists and turns in that I did not see coming. And that I always find massively entertaining.
Yes, the story was beautifully told.
I think every game to come out after it has suffered by comparison. In terms of just the level of acting and storytelling and production, and considering this being a game coming out at the end of its generation, I think it even gives the next gen games that have come out recently a run for their money. So yeah, Last of Us Part 2 was definitely going to be somewhere in my top 3, and it's my number 2. So we're doing this all over the shop. So yeah, Marcus, which one of your games would you like to talk about first?
Okay, so I'm going to be brief about a game that I've talked loads about already. The way I see it, ongoing games still kind of count. If games have more content released, DLCs, whatever, and for me, it's going to be Monster Hunter World Iceborne. Only because this year...
Game of the year, 4 years running.
This year, well, it's a game of two halves, quite literally, and each of them had a year's worth of free content. I'd be an absolute mug not to put this in my top 3. Bearing in mind, it's taken up 770-something hours of my life.
I mean, if I was to talk about the game I played the most this year, it would be Assassin's Creed Odyssey, but that game is 2 years old.
Yeah, so. I know, but the thing is, I've also really, really enjoyed it. I mean, like, I've gone on about it, so I'm not going to do that in this podcast. There are many other hours and hours of worth of me gushing about this game. But I just think the sheer amount of work they've put into it, whilst not on a par with something like The Last of Us 2, I think to give away that much free content, that much free development time, especially in 2020 as well, when shit was going south. I mean, like, July and October saw the last updates to this game, and it's been given a send-off now, so it's done.
But there is paid content, though, isn't it? Like
the paid content is just gestures and little aesthetic trinkets, but you don't pay to fight a new monster.
No, it's the free-to-play model. And it's good that they've got that going on. Yeah,
but that's the thing. It kind of reminded me of the old PC game because it's kind of free to play in a sense, but you have to buy the expansion pack.
It's the game as a service. You're playing for the multiplayer elements,
each game you buy, each game you're buying, you're essentially buying the what do they call it? The pass or whatever it is. They usually call
season pass type arrangement.
Season pass.
Essentially each of them comes with essentially a full season pass with it for about 40 quid, which is the price of each game. So I spent 80 quid and probably got about 200-300 quid's worth of stuff out of it easily.
Happy days.
Cool.
And just the fact that it was enough to make me buy a second PlayStation. That should say it all. And that's something that I did not take lightly. But no, I've got to say, it is one of the amount of love and care and attention for the community. I've not experienced that in a game for a long, long time, which is what kept me coming back. So whenever things were revealed, you get this whole developer diary that would be released. And it's kind of like how we are with, the backgrounds you can pick and stuff like that. It'd be like the free developers talking through all the events that would happen over the course of, say, the next 2 months or whatever. All of the monsters when they will be released and, and other things as well. So it was more than just, this is a new monster, go kill it, wear its skin and show it off to your friends. It's like balance patches, changes, adjustments to moves. The game literally was being improved each and every time. And all of that with no extra cost, which I thought was, it's no wonder it's Capcom's best-selling game ever. I loved it, and I'm gutted that it's finished. I still haven't killed the last 2 creatures because they are bastard hard on a level I am just simply not capable of reaching yet. So I still need to go and get sort of end game meta stuff for my classes and all that. So there's still a hell of a lot of work.
So it hasn't ended yet.
Not for me. But
they're not putting anything new in.
No, I don't. Yeah, there's
because
nothing
they want to
new.
release a new one. There's a new one out next year, I think.
Yeah, thanks. I hadn't noticed that.
Goodbye, Marcus.
So you can start all over again.
Yeah, we'll get to that though with the with another time. But yeah, I've got to say it's easily my best game of 2020. Technically came out in 2019 September, the PC one was released January 2020. So technically it is still a 2020 game. But yeah, I'm happy about it. And I'm one of millions and millions of people who have also enjoyed it. And what's weird is that I still see people starting the game from scratch. Because you can go in and drop in and join people's quests and help them. And I still see people really low level, sort of like going through the main story, and you can just jump in and give them a bit of help. Which is what I had that experience when I first started. Now you got like a level 999 hunter just turn up and just murder the thing with a couple of strikes. I'm now kind of, well, not at that level, but close to it. And it's it's quite a nice feeling that I'm helping other people like through this game sort of thing. Anyway,
Cool.
so that's obviously my number 3.
Cool. All right then. So shall I do my number 3 then, and then we're all like
do it.
on
Yeah,
number
go for
2s. Okay, my number 3 is Spider-Man Miles Morales. I suppose this was always going to feature somewhere because it's the first game I've played of the new console generation.
Yep.
But it's it's a brief game, but I never have a problem with that. I wish all games were this length, you know. And it, you know, it was really focused. It added some things without taking anything away from what made Spider-Man great. We got to see that city again, but like with a different lick of paint on it, I suppose. And Miles Morales is a really endearing character. I think we're going to be seeing lots more of him across all media in the future. And I just want them to make more and more of this, and there will definitely be more of this. I think there will be. They definitely hint at a more extensive Spider-Man sequel in the future, which hopefully will feature both of them again. That'll be nice. But yeah, no, it's a real nice little glimpse of what the PlayStation 5 and this generation will be capable of. So yeah, Spider-Man Miles Morales is my number 3.
I mean, I think it's great. I mean, I also it's another game that I seem to think is something based on love for fans. Because I don't know if you've seen the Spider-Verse suit that he has.
I believe it was one of the ones available.
Yeah, it's the amount of work that's gone into that is crazy. Like, actually using the same keyframe animation as the movie. So when you're swinging around, you're essentially getting weirded out by what's on screen.
I'm playing silly buggers here just to distract you.
Yeah,
still going a bit Inception.
But it's I don't know. I agree. I mean, if I'd played it, it probably would have been in my top 3. But you know,
I mean,
it might be my
I loved the first one.
5 for 2021.
Absolutely loved the first one. I can totally see how Miles Morales is going to be better. It's not an experience I plan to go into on my PlayStation. That's sitting in the background when I've got my shiny new PC, and will be more of a media box up until the point when I'm ready to buy a PlayStation 5, subject to actually having things like money in the new pandemic apocalyptic world.
I mean, most sane people, like myself included, last time around, would wait until there was actually some stuff worth playing. But the fact is, that is a really good launch title.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, that's a no-brainer for me, obviously, who loved the first one. It's the price value proposition is a non-starter, really.
No, it's ridiculously expensive.
but this year has been a funny one. And,
well, the amount of money you normally spend in the pub, Rob, I think you've been able to justify your shiny machines and actually not be any worse off.
And the train, the train, not having to go anywhere has paid for all of this shit.
Actually, you're right. Your PC and your PlayStation 5 and the games all added together are probably less than your annual train fare.
Yeah,
that's terrifying.
Yeah,
this is why I couldn't swing a PS5 yet. Maybe the local working.
It's not quite the bus fare, is it?
No.
Okay. Cool.
All right then. So,
shall I go for my number 2?
Yeah, go on then.
Yeah, go for it.
So this one took me a lot of thought, but I realised I picked it up again the other day. Whilst Mark has picked for his number 3 a game that's been out for a number of years, but obviously has been incremented, I've actually decided to go for a game that isn't out. Or is out in beta, is probably the better way to say it. Early access, and it is not probably a game that would have made it well up if I'd bought it, which I didn't, which would be Baldur's Gate 3. And I will say, I mean, the games we're coming up with are out of the games we've played. We're not games journalists. We don't exactly get to play every single game of the year. But one of the games I just checked, I fired up Steam just to double check. I've played 105.2 hours of this game, and yet I've only mentioned it once this year on the podcast. And that is Mountain Blade 2, Bannerlord.
Wow.
What this game has given me is a sandbox. And I mentioned it when it was first out, and it's actually had a number of updates, obviously it being in the early build and not in the polished final version, but picking it up again just after Christmas in the last few days going back to it and realising where the improvements were, where content's been added, where bugs have been fixed. The ability to eventually start as a man or a woman on a horse, if you're given a horse, maybe with some really crappy weaponry, starting off trying to recruit peasants and hold your own against looters, and you end up commanding armies and, deciding the fates of kingdoms just by wandering around this sandbox map. You can be a trader if you want to, just going from town to town. You can start trading caravans. You can recruit companions. But the most fun thing is to build a small army and hurt people a lot. But you go around in this little map, and when the armies meet, you then go into a third-person view. And you can choose to be an archer or a crossbowman, or you can choose to get in there with two-handed weapons, with pikes, with spears. You can fight on horseback with a lance, or you can be a mounted archer. You can choose your fighting style. You can choose what works. I generally stand back, command my soldiers, have a crossbow, and then a sword and shield for if I finally get into the melee, which I prefer not to. I'm weak and charismatic, just like in real life. And I have started this game a number of times, and it relaxes me, and it is pure escapism. I don't know if there's an end game. You just play it, you build up an army, and eventually if you get a bit bored, you start again and build up a different army with a different build. And it's a bit of a medieval simulator, but for a shitty year, it's the escape game I wanted, and I've absolutely adored it. So that's my number 2, Mountain Blade 2 Bannerlord. Available on Steam in early access. Bit buggy, great fun.
Nice.
Cool, yeah. Well, there's certainly been a few bits of buggy stuff this year.
Yeah, but they're not meant to be early access.
No, that's true. We'll get to that later. So, Marcus, what's your number 2 then?
My number 2 is a game I haven't actually finished yet, but by all means, that's no impact on the game itself. And that's Ghost of Tsushima.
Okay. Do you want to hold fire there?
No. Fuck you.
I think, okay, I will say, and I think Rob's revealed his number 2 and his number 3.
It's like, this is what happens on the movie ones, isn't it?
But
this is like a movie podcast, Rob.
Yeah. I say let's go for this. Balls out and charge. Right? It's my number 1. It's Rob's number 1, clearly. Marcus's number 2. Which is clearly only going to be pipped by a different game that he's not finished.
Exactly. I've gone full heart this year. You can't help but go full heart. In the year that we've had, you got to be led by your heart.
Absolutely.
Fuck the haters. Life's too short.
Ghost of Tsushima to me was fascinating. It was the most fun I've had in a game this year, without a doubt, with the exception of things like Fall Guys, which were a different kind of fun, and I'll want to mention that one a bit later anyway. Ghost of Tsushima, Rob and I both platinumed. And
yeah, that kind of clinched it, really.
You wanted to stay in there and carry on, didn't you? But it wasn't too big. I think the time it took to platinum was the time it, for me, was about the same time as I spent playing through The Last of Us, just going, will this end?
Yeah, I mean, I'd like Marcus to speak first, I think, because it did come up as his number 2.
Go
on, Marcus.
I'm just finding, and to be honest, I think, first of all, I've got to say, Will, excellent suggestion with the game difficulty.
Yes.
As you were talking about Last of Us, the whole idea of each fight having more importance.
Yeah.
When you put the difficulty up to hard, and there's been a couple of times where I have bumped it down, when you've been murdered trying to take over a stronghold too many times, you think, oh, for fuck's sake. But then it goes straight back up to hard.
No, you've got to level yourself up and come back more powerful than they can possibly imagine.
I've still been murdered by bandits on the side of the road. Yes. I've taken out an entire Mongol army, and then a random bandit and his mate has just murdered me at the side of the road.
That's almost like...
And it's just left me laughing. I love it. I absolutely love it. This is not a disservice. It is kind of like how I felt Breath of the Wild should have been if Nintendo's gloves were off a bit.
What if
you
they
take
could
the concept of it and expand it?
What, like
much further.
Add some characters that speak?
Yeah. But you know what I mean. This is what I mean by I'm not doing a disservice to the game.
World,
it's
if that's what you
so
mean.
good. I love chasing down foxes. You guys have talked about this already, so I'm not going to go on too long.
Fox party.
Whenever it's like, a lot of people I've seen complain, going, "Oh, you know, you're trying to find something and there's another bloody fox." Then I'm like, "You heartless bastards! How can you not find joy in that little cry from a fox?" And going, "Oh wait, let me just kill these muppets that are clearly interrupting my fox following journey, and then I'm going to follow the fox."
Absolutely.
I love it. Absolutely love it. I've kept it. I haven't changed up any of his equipment too much yet, because I'm kind of keeping it as it is. I'm kind of going more standoffs.
Standoffs are good.
Because I find them amazing.
Yeah, I like that. I just like charging about killing people.
You just take out so many of their stronger fighters from the get-go whenever that comes up.
I think that's the thing. The game didn't introduce anything particularly new mechanism.
No.
I would say to an extent the standoffs were probably, the sheer cinema of the standoffs. Just for the listeners who haven't played it, essentially, when you start a fight, you get an option to do this samurai showdown challenge where it all pauses and you're waiting for your enemy to move first.
You walk up to the gate, you challenge them, don't you? And it's this big, boisterous sort of, bring out your strongest warrior.
I think, that was my main issue with it, was the fact that, it didn't really massively innovate, but even though I found some of it a little bland and some of the open world stuff a bit trite, it never got old. And because it was such a technical showcase, there was no loading. So many open world games become tiresome because of their massive load times, and that almost becomes like you don't. I mean, that can work in a way because it makes you more like, I really don't want to die because of a load screen, but the fact that it was all just so immediate meant I even went and did all the ridiculous platinum stuff that I find absurd, some of it. But I thought, fuck it, I'll do it because I'll just do a guide and do those last few bits.
It's that instant access, isn't it? I mean, that's it's the kind of thing that, obviously I've mentioned in previous podcasts, I've got into video games from the whole beat 'em up side and stuff, and I used to play online games and stuff and all that. And it's something that they used to call, especially with like fighting on the net, they used to call it rollback, which is getting you back into the action as fast as possible.
Yeah.
So it's kind of like once you've been beaten by an opponent, it's the not waiting around for the matchmaking thing to kick in and then sort of going, okay, I'm going to refight this opponent again. It's that instant thing. And I've heard many different developers in different styles and genres of games talking about the same thing now, and Ghost of Tsushima seemed to be, they've taken so many elements from different game styles and they've kind of crafted something that doesn't do anything different, but it's almost like a flagship example of a type of game. Even little
subtleties, like there were no map markers, there were just you kind of tell it that you want to go to a certain place in a certain direction, and the wind just blows the blossom gently and aromatically in that way.
The thing that might make it bland for something else is purely the aesthetic of it, because it's Japanese influenced. If it was Roman, it would be completely different. It would probably be more boisterous. You'll go and visit brothels and take part in orgies and go and watch a gladiator fight in a coliseum or something as well. But I think because it had that, it was going for that whole Japanese feel. The kind of, samurai-esque, this is the wind, and the fact that you meditate and write haikus and stuff.
Yeah.
I think that's what kind of, it's almost calm. It's sort of like Japanese cinema, where a lot of it is understated and a lot of it is it can feel a bit slow, but it's story and drama driven.
Yes.
And I think they've kind of got that world cinema vibe to the game, which I just couldn't believe. You guys are down to a pip of health, and I'm literally running for my life. And just when I'm starting to waver, I call for the horse, and the horse runs alongside me, and I leap onto it, and then just away!
I must admit that, the horse thing was certainly something I became horribly familiar with in Assassin's Creed. Again, it was in Odyssey, but the horse was good, but also the closeness to the horse and the relationship with the horse, and therefore where that came in on some of the plots. It was good. It was beautifully done.
Yeah.
It's worth saying. I've played some other big Ubisoft open world games this year. I've played Valhalla, or I've played Watch Dogs. I've completed them both, but certainly Ghost of Tsushima, without a doubt, was the one I just had the most fun in and the most found the most interesting. I loved that world. It was something new for me. It was beautifully done.
Yeah, it was definitely one of the games that I've kind of, aside from Odyssey, it's the game I've played the most. And yeah, even though like you can kind of, my main issue was just that it felt like a video game. It felt like such a sort of cookie cutter sort of structure to it. But they did every single one of those systems was done in such a lovely way. I feel like it was actually kind of the pinnacle of that kind of game.
What a swan song for the PlayStation 4 in many ways.
Yeah, exactly.
And with The Last of Us before it as well.
Yeah. I think that was what they were going for. They were going to see what can we truly achieve out of this system before it goes off.
And it astonished me. The load times just astonished me. That was the sort of thing I was expecting from the PlayStation 5, not end-of-generation games on the PlayStation 4. That was rather surprising.
Yeah. Also, there was the bit of the freedom as well. There was a bit where I ran up to this guy and he had his son trapped on a bridge.
Oh,
and
I remember
he had the
that.
Mongols sort of shooting arrows
on both sides of the cavern.
But rather than, I spoke to him and then I kind of went, I'm not going to do this yet because I'm going off to find Madam, I can't remember her name was. And I just went, what if I go down and just start shooting the people without engaging the quest? And I did that and they all died. And there was just like, obviously it kept respawning people, but it only ever respawned, I think, 3 people out of the 8 people that were there. So I shot them with arrows, went down, dealt with them. Then I went and spoke to the person and then engaged the quest. And then suddenly there was only 3 people in this quest that I had to beat. It was just like,
so
it's almost like James Tiberius Kirk levels of thinking. It's like, can I Kobayashi Maru this game? And I did that with a siege of a barracks as well, where you had to rescue someone. Yeah. And I just shot arrows over the top and took out a couple of people before they even got to the front and got out. And I was just thinking, this game's amazing. The level of freedom that you've got. The
other thing I would touch on, just from the sheer good guy developer world, and I'm sure it was planned, and maybe it was planned to come out on day one, I don't know, I don't care, but the fact they released this beautiful, almost perfect version of the open world, both in lengthwise, it wasn't bloated like an Assassin's Creed scale, it was consumable, released an excellent single player, and then out of the blue, when I'd done the platinum, out of nowhere comes a really good, fun multiplayer mode.
Yeah, I know, that's outrageous. It's like, we didn't even ask for it.
No.
But there it is, and it's just really, really, like, really well done. Like, and free as well, again.
Yeah. There was never a mention.
Unbelievable.
There was never a mention.
Yeah. And as far as
an expectation either.
As far as you saying about the combat, I know you sort of say about putting it up hard and stuff. I mean, I still massively enjoyed the combat. That was that was something
that wasn't a.
It wasn't. I would never take that away from it. That's certainly, and it's the combat that probably kept me playing it for so long. Because I just didn't ever tire of it. I found it incredible, especially when you unlock the extra moves and you're able to slice through about 8 guys at once and stuff. It's wicked.
Yeah, no. I mean, it was purely just to give it a little bit of an edge. I mean, I think the combat is so polished, it's ridiculous. But it was just that little bit of, because I think if I toned it down, I would probably get through the game a lot faster. But it's just, not because I'm an amazing game player or anything like that, but I think it's just a bit of muscle memory coming back from the old beat-em-up games and stuff like that. But it's just having it a bit more so if you do slip up, if you don't get a parry right, more than half of your health is gone.
You're putting your life on the line in every fight. Rather, you can't afford to make the mistakes. Yeah,
you get arrogant and you fuck up. The game teaches you, and I quite liked that. So that's why I've kept it sort of like that. It's sort of one step away from every swing will kill you. I'm not quite sure I'll ever go for that.
I did have a go on that. So that was the mode they put out, which was literally realistic mode. You can take sometimes a cut from a sword, but you take a second one, that's it, you're reloading. I did have a go on that difficulty, but the point is your enemies can as well. Your enemies aren't tanks that need 50 slashes to take down. It's every fight, every one-on-one combat is over with 2 strokes of the sword.
Yeah.
And it's hard, but it's the sort of thing I will go back to that game one day, I think, and try and play it on that mode, just work through, because it's super cool. You have to
Awesome.
be a genuine sword master, or at least L1 parry master.
Yeah.
Yeah, I really like the duels, and I really like the shrines where you'd have to do like a bit of a platform challenge.
It's almost Assassin's Creed tower puzzle type arrangements, some of the shrines, but old Assassin's Creed, if you see what I mean.
Oh god, the bamboo ones as well. God, they were
They
were
the
bamboo cutting exercise where you have a series of button presses to replicate like one of those rhythm dance games.
Good god.
Yeah.
Well, you have to do them really quickly, don't you? In a single motion.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think that's what got me, which is why I was talking about the whole beat 'em up thing before.
Learning your combos.
Spending your time doing combos and stuff in a video game, you have to essentially buffer commands in whilst the previous one is going on. So that is essentially what a lot of people are doing and what I used to do when I was a sort of teenager, early 20s. But it still kicks into my head, the whole, I can do this. I can be faster than that. I can do this. And no, I can't. I'm going to go have a cup of tea.
Yeah, I'm old and I'm slow.
Yeah. But, no, I loved it.
Superb.
So, do we move on?
There's only one more number. Our number ones were your number twos. That sounds a bit weird.
Yeah.
Let's not dwell on that particular
definitely
statement.
given that
your number twos.
Yeah, we've definitely given that the time it deserves. What's your number one then, Marcus?
Can I guess?
Yeah.
It's a rhetorical question.
Fall Guys, Ultimate Knockout.
Fall Guys.
No, of course it's not.
It begins with an F anyway.
It's a game that still made me cry the other day. It's a game that made me question my life choices.
Properly.
Well, to be honest, I've been a bit, for lack of a better term, bit 2020'd. I realised how much that year had an impact on me when I hadn't played the game that quite literally I had been waiting for most of my adult life.
Yes.
You know, you could have had a better year if you just played it.
Yes. I wouldn't have cared.
Everything would have been fine.
If I sat in a cupboard with a TV and that, I wouldn't have cared.
That was your old flat, wasn't it?
Your brain doesn't always work like that. But yeah, no, I gotta say, I love the combat. I love the voice acting. I love the script. The way they've brought these characters to life, because they had no voices. They weren't really characters. They were just sort of early PlayStation polygon blocks.
Yeah.
What they've done is literally taken a game that I already loved and actually breathed life into it. And they've changed up the story as well, because there's been so much lore and so many other related games that have come out and expanded the world. They've got an entire story to play with now. And they've literally retelling this story. And fucking hell, it's good. The music, when I messaged you guys and I said that I put on the game and the opening music menu was actually making me tear up. It's because I started playing it with headphones, something I didn't do before. So actually hearing this thing in full sort of, as intended, I realised this score has given me goosebumps. And then I clicked continue and was playing it, and I was like, I don't know how I'm going to play this game, because clearly I've moved on a bit in the game and the combat is going to be bastard hard. But I quickly picked it back up and it's so satisfying. It's difficult, but it is so satisfying.
I got the
I'm currently
tears
stuck
on
a tournament.
Oh, okay. I got the tears with Spider-Man and Last of Us, not on Ghost of Tsushima, just saying.
So Ghost of Tsushima didn't move me in that emotional way, I will admit.
No. It didn't either. But I got tears from Final Fantasy VII Remake. Because it's really hard to explain, and I think the closest thing would be the equivalent of, imagine if none of the prequels and none of the sequels to the original Star Wars trilogy came about, and then we saw The Mandalorian.
Yeah, okay.
That feeling is how I feel about this game. and how so many other proper fans about it. I mean, I know it's just another one in a Square franchise, but each one of them's an individual game, so it doesn't really matter if it's number 7 in whatever. But it's ridiculous what they've achieved with it. Fleshing out how this world would look. Like the idea of that this city is 2 tiers, and this was like 90s, 97, whatever, the height of anime and stuff like that around the world. So the idea of a plated city, but you never get to see that in the game, really. You get to go above the plate and below and the things. Yeah. And it's just little things like going out the door and looking up and seeing the plate hovering over the slums. And you think, fuck me, that is how it's going to look.
Yeah.
And it's something you haven't thought about, haven't even realised. That you realise they've thought of that and they're now showing this to you. And you kind of go, Jesus Christ, this is just too much. They didn't need to do this. And there's some really funny bits as well. There's a part where I'm in this dodgy sort of like night area called Wall Street, and we have to go and rescue this person who's gone with a sleazy Don, who I think is voiced by Mark Hamill.
Right.
And the idea is that I know where it's going because I played the original game, and it leads to a kind of weird, funny cross-dressing section to basically bust into this place and rescue your mate. But we go to the gates, and these henchmen are there going, "Oh, Don's got no use for guys." And she's like, "Well, can I go in?" And this other girl's like, "Can I go in, Aerith?" And it's like, no, you're kind of cute in a homely sort of way. And she's like, "Excuse you?" And they go, "Yeah, she scrubs up. She's going to be like, she'll be okay." And then she just turns to Cloud and goes, "Permission to kill." And he just goes, "Denied." Carries on the conversation. It's little things like that. They've given them personality, which you kind of got hints at through the original dialogue. But it's so nice to see these characters actually fleshed out and actually kind of fun. And I'm fucking playing this game till it finishes.
Do it.
And I'm going to go around.
Please.
Yeah, do it. Play the fucking game, Marcus. Play it.
Yeah. Like I said, if I don't play it, 2020 me is going to go in a fucking DeLorean, turn up, and smack me in the head with Negan's bat.
Play your game of the year. Play your game of the year. It's like, it's not even going to be that bad, if you play it.
No. You know what else might happen?
What?
I might play it.
Definitely try it. Give it a
anyway.
go. All right then.
Yeah, no. I don't know what happened though. I think it's I'm going to put it behind me as the insanity of an insane year. But that just goes to show if after all that time I pick up the game again, and I was really enjoying it and I don't know why I stopped. But if after all that time I could pick it up and it can immediately elicit a response like that from me, it's definitely got to be game of the year for me.
Yeah. I mean, my main tactic of the whole of that last fucking excrement of a year was to bury myself in video games. To the point where I spent like my entire train fare on video game entertainment. And I just realised I'm such a filthy Sony fanboy. All of my choices were Sony exclusives.
Oh, you dirty Sony slut.
So it's time to move on to our honourable mentions, because obviously we played far more than 3 games this year. And there's certain games that have to be mentioned, even if they might be massively inaccessible for most people, or just covered in bugs, or both. So,
or just not in our top 3s.
Yeah. Well, the thing is, most of my honourable mentions are not in my top 3 for the 2 reasons I just mentioned. Otherwise, they would be.
So have you played Bugsnax yet?
No, not that one. No, why am I going to play that? It's just I just installed it because I can.
Rob, it's designed for you. It was just... Anyway.
All right. How should we do this then? Because
we talk.
Yeah, let's pick one at a time and just go around the table.
I'm going to go first because I've got minimal and you guys can enjoy the limelight.
Go on then.
I've got an honourable mention. Fortnite.
Okay.
Again,
it's a game that I didn't think I'd ever be playing. I jumped into it and I've been enjoying it. The end.
Fair enough.
Told you it'd be quick. It's got instant accessibility. It's fun. It's frustrating and it's kind of crazy. And I found out that a mate of mine who I've known for more than half my life. I think we met when I was about 6. He's got a family in London, and his wife and his son, they all play it, and they've got a squad. And we've been we play like a team match normally, and we found out that they play it, and we've played like a couple of sessions with them, and it's been a lot of fun. And apparently she was very competitive. She was number 10 in a Fortnite tournament. I did not know this.
Oh, cool.
At one point, she was like proper competitive gamer.
Fair enough.
But yeah, no, it's literally a shit day at work. Switch it on, shoot some people for a bit, have dinner. I've heard people say the same thing about Overwatch in terms of instant accessibility, jump into a match. It's that sort of feeling. So for me, it gets an honourable mention because it's just easy access, and also I can see how Epic Games have made a shit ton of money out of it. Yeah, that's me. Done.
Yeah, I mean, it doesn't fit the criteria, my criteria for this section, but it's certainly its own thing. Like, it's definitely its own thing that kind of makes it a category all of its own, I think.
Yeah, I know. I just thought because it's ongoing and will have no end, like the internet and gaming will end and that bloody game will still be going somehow.
We'll see.
Oh, yeah. It will eventually turn into the Oasis.
It will eventually turn to the armed forces, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah. Anyway, let's carry on.
All right then, Will. Do you want to do one? Or you can force me.
So I'm going to go... So one game that I think I mentioned it on the last podcast we did, that I'd started playing. I have now completed 2 of the 3 main bits, and when I can be bothered, I'll finish off, but that kind of gives you a reason why it's not on the top. Is Assassin's Creed Valhalla.
Okay.
It's good.
That's a shame.
It's probably as good as Odyssey in many ways, but the trouble is, Odyssey was a step up by so much from the previous stuff, and Valhalla doesn't feel like it's done an awful lot new. It's improved the quest system, and actually the combat itself is better, but I think my biggest problem was I at no point felt like an assassin. At no point did it really encourage me to play stealthy, even to the point when I put you can control so there's 3 difficulty settings. One is about navigation, one is about stealth, and one is about fighting. I literally put the fighting difficulty up to Drengir, which is the very hard setting, and the stealth down to don't hurt me, daddy. And so that I could creep around in the bushes and take out whole settlements first to try and give me that play style of I'm a better assassin than I am a fighter. Yet, even on not just hard but hardest setting, maybe I'm over leveled, but I didn't die a lot. And I just wanted to feel like an assassin, even hunting down the members of the clans, the Order of Ancients or whatever they call them, like you get in Odyssey. It didn't feel anything new this time. Go and find clues, track down the next ones, wipe them out. Kind of done now.
They really gate that off, don't they, until you reach a certain power level, I've found. Like, I can't even entertain that at the moment. I'm on like power level 40 and the knights are like over double that.
Yeah, you just leave it till the end and then you go and mop it up, but it feels like an afterthought. It's I think it's really well done, and if this was your first Assassin's Creed game, it would be really, or the first one in a long time, you'd be amazed. But I think after Odyssey, it doesn't feel like a big enough sea change to be anything as special. It feels pretty much like a straight sequel or straight follow-up.
Yeah, I actually think it's kind of got like one foot in the past.
That's it.
Like,
I've done 80 hours on it and had quite a nice time, so I'm not knocking it. I've not had a bad time at any point. It's just not in my top 3.
Yeah, no, I just thought it had like one foot in the past, like in terms of like it was bringing back a lot of the stuff from the well, it's in the old, like from the older games, like Assassin's Creed 3. It reminded me of quite a bit with the chasing after the fucking bits of paper on the roofs,
Oh, the hunting the shanties, yeah.
They brought a lot of the old stuff back.
Yeah, but I found I
Yeah.
ignored that and I didn't feel any detriment in not collecting all. There's a lot of collectibles, relics and artifacts and this and that. I mean, the quests that you found, the side quest structure was brilliant. You just found these little stories which you'd deal with there and then and move on. And that I thought was wonderful and a huge improvement. I found if you don't care about artifacts, you just hunt down treasure to help you upgrade your armour. I loved not having 30,000 different sets of armour that I had to scrap. I liked kind of saying, this is the armour that I want to focus on, and everything goes to improving that. That was good. There were a lot of nice things, but there was nothing new there.
Because the skill stuff, that's actually in addition, because it was all just very, it was just abilities and gear-based in Odyssey, and this actually lets you increment your stats, which wasn't a thing, really, until you got right into the epic levels of Odyssey, where you started adding those little incremental things.
But again,
so they kind of brought that forward and actually added that. And some people saying, like, they replaced that, but it's not, it's new.
They changed it about. At the end of the day, they had this system whereby you level up and you choose the direction your skills go in. And you could argue that Odyssey let you do the same thing, it just let you do it via equipment and a progression path rather than by this approach. And at the end of the day, it's 6-1, half a dozen of the others. They haven't done anything new. They've just changed. Would be my perspective.
I just quite liked it though, because it gives you something to do when you level up. So I all of the systems I prefer. But yeah, you're right. It's Assassin's Creed by the very shredding
by numbers,
like wafer thin sort of shred of relation.
Yeah.
And I think I read something where they've just admitted as much, where they've said all of the writing emphasis has now got nothing to do with any of the real life stuff, and that's all just fluff to, I don't know, just because they have to do it now.
When you say real life, do you mean modern day? Because real life is an interesting statement there.
Well, yeah, I don't know. It's better than current real life.
Better than real life, yes.
Yeah.
There was some interesting plot
to the
stuff.
future.
To be honest, some of the stories it told through the main plot, it was all right. It was quite interestingly done. And the Viking world stuff, actually. So I've kind of explained so that you've got three main quests. I don't think I'm spoiling it when I say basically quest one is you and your Viking army clan group conquer England. So the Vikings get to take hold of it and get rid of all the, the Christian kings. The second part is to wipe out the Order of Ancients. The we're not assassins, we're baddies, although we're not really going to specify
I'm taking my headphones out now.
Approach. And then the third part, I'm not spoiling it. And then the third part, should we talk about what a twat Rob is? He's put his headphones back in.
I don't want to know what the last bit is.
No, the third part.
I know what the first two are.
Have you been to Asgard?
No.
Right, well, there's a series of quest lines, and there's a series of quest lines that are not set on Earth, but you'll be there, right? You clearly haven't spent more than 10 hours in the game.
30 hours I've done.
30 hours. Basically, the moment you've got the settlement, you build a shaman's hut. I can't remember what they call it exactly. The
Haven't
witch
done
woman's
that
hut.
yet.
When you build that, it opens up the other quest line, which is the stuff based in Asgard.
Okay, all right.
That's it. I'm not going any further than that. But you need to build that thing, and that opens up the third branch of the quest lines.
I mean, the thing does thoroughly recommend doing that. The thing is, I spent a lot of the early part of the game.
You're aware of the thing. You just don't want to listen to me saying it.
No, I don't. I didn't know that's what it was. I mean, it doesn't surprise me massively because Odin's already turned up and there's visions.
Yeah, well, basically, exactly that. You get the third parties, and with the way it works, you play. If you select the way the game recommends in the difficulty, it places you as a female I4 in the real world and as the male I4 when you play this quest line. So you end up playing both.
I played. My main character is a dude because I'm not playing a Viking game and not having a beard.
Okay, fair enough, but I get to have lesbian sex with hot female Vikings, so, we each have our own
thing. I just have regular sex. So
you're playing the game like The Witcher.
No, I know. I understand. There was one moment where it sounded weird where someone refers to you as like a Valkyrie, and I was like, that's weird.
Yeah, I remember the way the game's meant to be played. But like I say, there's this third quest line.
It's because I'm playing it wrong. Although it's not wrong because they wouldn't give you the option if it was the wrong way. But anyway,
No,
yeah,
I disagree
understand.
with that. I've been to bars, ordered really nice whiskey, and they've offered it with ice. It's still wrong.
Yeah,
Oh well.
that's awful.
Yeah, well,
That's
I'm
unforgivable.
like I say, I'm 30 hours in. I'm still quite enjoying it.
It's fine. It's absolutely fine. It's a brilliant time sink. It's like Assassin's Creed of old. Perfectly good.
I've just spent a lot more time raiding than doing like what I should do because I got kind of hung up on this Christmas DLC they added,
Oh, that was bollocks.
which one of the quests was bug to fuck, and it just made me make a fucking cattle farm instead of doing what I should have done, which was unlock all the Asgard shit. But anyway, I'm hanging out with the Sons of Ragnar now and gallivanting around up north. But yeah, no, it's really cool. I'm looking forward to playing more.
Yeah.
Okay, right. I suppose let's just get this out of the way then, because one game that should have been in my top 3 is Cyberpunk 2077. I bought a £2,000 computer to play this game,
Snap.
and and
But my
it's-
one's slightly
it's-
better than yours, I'd just like to point out.
Yeah, whatever. I don't know how it is. It isn't. It's got the same fucking graphics card and motherboard in it, hasn't it?
I think you said my motherboard was slightly better.
I don't know how. Not motherboard, processor.
Processor, that
I
was
don't
it.
know what makes. I don't. Yeah, I don't. It's well, whatever.
Yeah,
It's-
I've
it
just got what
runs-
you said.
It runs Cyberpunk at 4K, something like 60 frames.
It seems to run okay.
Yeah. It does grind a bit after a few hours, but I think that's just the game being shit.
When you say
rather than my rig.
when you say grind, are you saying the gameplay grinds, or are you talking about some sort of
Frame rate.
Okay, I've not particularly noticed any frame rate issues on my slightly better PC, but well, we will see. I was enjoying your expression there, Rob. No, like I say, so why? I mean, there's been launch issues, particularly the PlayStation 4. A lot of people had problems. A lot of people are saying I'm perfectly happy with it, but a lot of people are thoroughly disappointed. It came out buggy, but I've not had a bad experience on it as such. But personally, I've simply found that there are games I'd rather be playing than Cyberpunk. Probably the best way I can put it. I'm in no rush to go back to it.
Yeah, I mean, I haven't had any. I mean, there was a moment last night where I was playing, and you're basically with this NPC, this girl NPC, and she's driving this truck, and well, you get the truck, you get it, and then she goes, "Oh, you don't want to help me, like, fucking totally wipe out this game base, do you?" And I was like, "Okay, then." So she drives you down. You kind of go through these caves, and then there's a big shootout, and so I died immediately because it was fucking hard, and I was just a little bit like, whoa, what's going on? And so it reloaded, and I reloaded in the driver's seat, like in her. So there was just all this hair everywhere.
Yeah.
And like, you can barely make out what's going on, and then it kind of carries on. But like, so it's little things like that kind of fuck me off. Like, cause it's just like a level of polish that it needed.
Yeah.
It just didn't get.
Yeah.
And there's lots of reasons for that. Obviously, they were under pressure to deliver something after having this game in development for nearly a decade. And obviously, I think lockdown has probably affected it, you know, as much as it's been business as usual. In my job, there's been certain things that have kind of, you know, just not had the level of attention that they might, or
Totally.
you know, they might ordinarily get. And so I think it's a victim of that. And in a game that's of the scale of this, it's quite unbelievable what they have managed to do anyway. The thing about the game is that I find it's just inconsistent. Like, there's bits at the start, the way that it kind of onboards you into the game, and like and the production value, the way that the NPCs like move around and actually act and not just stand there with a fucking head talking.
I'll be honest,
Like,
I'm utterly in love with some of the characters that I've met in the game. It is beautifully done, the facial animations, the sheer realness of some of the characters, and the sheer character and the acting behind it. I completely agree. Yeah, fantastically done.
I love, like, when you go into a bar. First of all, you walk into the bar and it's like, what the fuck? There's all this sort of shit going on, and it's so atmospheric. And you sit down at the bar and they ask you, what do you want to drink? And they bring it over, and then someone talks to you and you get the option to talk, reply, or have a drink.
Yeah.
And it just feels so fucking natural and awesome. Like, I mean, there's so many systems in the game that I just think aren't that well explained, but I've had some incredible moments with it. The number of things on your map just expand as your streak head goes up.
Yes, that's pretty cool. Yeah.
Yeah, and I think since launch they have allowed you the ability to at least filter the map, so you can just focus on like jobs and gigs and things, and so it doesn't confuse you with all the weird open world things. So I think that's really impressive now. And there's moments like in side quests that have had more impact on main quests in other games. Like I went and did one where I had to go and get some medical supplies, and they said that they're somewhere in this building. Now, most games, you know, you'd click on the lift, load. There's a bit of that in this game, but you actually go into this building. I mean, I think there is the option to go up in the lift, but if you don't have the code, you then have to walk up the stairs.
There's a way round depending on your abilities, always, yes.
Yeah, and so I walked up the stairs and like I could have just bashed the door down, but I didn't have enough strength. So I looked outside and then I went along a balcony, jumped over onto another balcony, went in that way, go all the way through this building, open this door. There's this guy there and he says, "Don't move." So obviously I've fucking flicked on the, accidentally moved a bit and he shot me. So I was like, hang on a minute, I'm going to reload and see what happens if I don't. So I did, and then I did just stop. And then he goes, all right. And then you end up talking to him. I'm a corpo, so I had the corpo dialogue response. I chose that. And then you end up being able to reason with the guy, you know, like, and talk him down. And in the end, he kind of just sort of walks off into the corner of the room and goes, I'll just take the medical supplies. So you do just take the medical supplies, and then you're walking down the stairs, and then I hear a bang. I'm like, no. And I come back up the stairs, and he's fucking offed himself, blood all up the fucking brains all up the wall. Keanu's standing over him going, yeah, man, this guy really wasn't having a good time. And it's just like...
That's not a bad impression as such.
Well, yeah. But anyway, my point is that I feel like there is so much to discover in this game.
How do you feel about
30
Keanu?
Hours in. I think at some point along the process, I think he sort of feels like he's hijacking the whole thing at some point.
Which is part of the plot. Not wanting to put spoilers in, but arguably it is, yeah.
True, and his whole reason for being there and stuff is compelling, and he's decent, like, in it.
I think it's well acted. My issue is I don't feel he needs to look like Keanu. That's kind of distracting and a bit real worldy. Even though he's an actor and he plays other things, it doesn't need to look like my real world reference of Keanu Reeves. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
That would be like starting the Elder Scrolls 4 Oblivion, and the guy that's voiced by Patrick Stewart, Jean-Luc Picard, the model also looks like him, or the Son of the Emperor actually looks like Sean Bean, and they built the character models. It's allowed to be voiced by a voice actor and not look like him. The whole idea of this guy looking like Keanu but not being Keanu just feels mad. I don't like it.
Well, I don't know. I think for many it's a pull. Because, you know, they did the other thing all the time, didn't they? Where he's voiced by a famous actor. But it's just the fact that they can get the likeness.
Yeah.
I think it's a little extra. They went that way because they could.
It kind of feels like you've got Geralt as like a third character, you know, and you're just playing like a sort of like a vessel, you know.
Dog's body.
I'm not entirely like the main character of the game is Johnny Silverhand, but they're giving you the ability to create your own character almost as a sort of. It feels like an afterthought, you know. because he plays such centre stage. He's the character that you see the most.
Yeah.
You only get to see your character if you're riding a motorcycle.
Yeah. I think that's the whole thing for me, though. I found that, and I've decided to give the game time because, like The Witcher 3, I'm expecting CDPR to put out a lot of patches based on the feedback, and I bought it out of excitement because who wouldn't? I mean, the sheer level of hype, I certainly got hype trained into it, and I've seen the graphics.
You and 16 million others.
Well, that's it. But they're going to put out the changes. They're going to put out the releases. They're going to try and snatch back some of their good guy status, which is an interesting one. I won't go into that. But I just feel that I can wait for a dry bit.
Do you think that this game would essentially... It's kind of a bit like... Not in the same way, but it's a bit like what No Man's Sky suffered from. Because that game has finally...
100%.
Because that game has finally become the game that was promised.
Yeah.
And it's taken years, but that game is finally at the point where, the indigenous life you find don't look utterly ridiculous compared to the demo you saw God knows how long ago.
Yeah, I think it is that. It's the intentions of the game are there. I think when I played it, there were certain things that just felt a bit weird. I'd also like to mention, the gunplay is pretty unsatisfying to me. And my issue is I've tried a few different builds. I've started it 3 times. You get 3 backgrounds. I've started it 3 times. I've done the Corpo, I've done the Street Kid, and I've done the Wastelander or whatever they're called. And I've sort of done those, and each time I've tried a different build. The first one I went for a kind of a melee build. Second one I went for something else, and the third one I went for this stealthy pistol build that was really, really successful. But then I realised that the gameplay, because the builds I was going for was just not quite right. But this is unfortunately the way I approach RPGs, and I think I'm going to wait for all the improvements to go in and take this as learnings and go back in. But I think I'm just going to go for a classic balls out, high explosive weapons, don't care running, 5 guns poking out of my robotic extremities, mad approach, because I think it's going to be the most fun. Stealth. I had this fantastic build where
is that the Dick 5 option?
Yeah, that's kind of it. Yeah, it's when your robotic modified genitalia can actually hold a bazooka. But I'm going to. I found even with this precision build I went for that was kind of really satisfying to start with. It meant that I had to sneak all the time and I had to get a headshot every time, and I got a 1-hit kill. Even, but then I found that was quite boring in the end, and I think this is my trouble. I'm not certain the gameplay loop itself gives me much in the way of satisfaction. I don't know how you found that, Rob.
I've just been kind of jack of all trading it a little bit, really, just because I want to try and explore what these different systems are. So I've kind of mostly been. So I've got a bit of strength because you're kind of forced to with some of the bosses to smack them around the head with something sharp. There's no real. Maybe that's just the way I had to do it with what I had available. But I've kind of do that, and I have like a pistol with a silencer on it because I do like doing stuff stealthily. I've been doing a lot of I upgraded my cyber deck, and I've got I can do disable cybernetics on hackers and things now, which is good, and especially when you've got guys that are running around doing all that blurry.
So again, context for the listeners. So you get various enemy types. You get the runners and gunners, but then you get these stealthy net hacker types. Who the first you know about their presence is that suddenly you get this thing going across your screen saying you're being set on fire or overheating or all sorts of stuff going on. Yeah. And it's really freaky when it happens, actually, particularly if you're not prepared. But again, I found with this stealth build, they didn't even know I was there, so I was just sneaking up and taking them out. It made for quite a boring gameplay. So I need to start again just with something new.
I've also, because I was trying to do a bit of stealth, but I've gone the cold blood route, which basically is almost like a berserker sort of thing, because you start off, you get the upper hand, and you get bonuses if you can keep on linking up kills.
Less berserker. Think less berserker, Rob, and more John Wick.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
literally
Assassin,
the
sort of,
cold
yeah.
calculating assassin. For each one you take out, you get this stack of ability to assist you taking out the next. It's gun fu type shit.
Yeah, I kind of had quite a satisfying thing where I went into this brain dance club and like I saw one and I had him lined up and I took him out in two and then I knew there was already a guy to the left and I kind of went and got him straight away afterwards. And then obviously it all kind of kicked off and people started running in from upstairs and stuff.
Yeah.
So I had to then get the submachine gun out and go fucking crazy with grenades.
Please tell me that you had John Wick mode on in the background whilst that was going on.
Oh, the game
because
just
that would have been absolutely epic.
The game just does that. That's the soundtrack,
Yeah.
pretty much.
Awesome.
That's the other thing I found. The soundtrack, when you're driving the radio stations, probably very much your cup of tea, Rob. But I just have to turn the radio off because they're all just fucking noise.
There's no lightning seeds.
There's no melody there. Nothing melodious in the slightest.
No, it's just
ELM.
It's just crushing industrial fucking techno.
It's basically heavy techno or thrash metal, isn't it? It's basically, you get in the car and you're like, I'll just put it over to this point. And you get basically the car music comes on. It's just someone going,
I'm pretty sure I got in a car and it had some sort of jazz playing or something the other day. That sounds like other bands that I've listened to. The other thing is like the game does kind of feel a bit on rails for long periods. Like there's like, we're going to go and do this heist, and all of a sudden I'm thinking, what skill should I invest in? What program shall I put in my cyber deck that will be useful for a heist? And no, it's just on rails. Do this, click on that, shoot them, get out of them alive, drive off, or no, don't even drive off, just get in a car and have that drive you off. You know, so it's like almost like Call of Duty in places, which I was not really expecting. Here's the long and the short of
it for me, right? Swords are more fun in games than guns. Right? I think it's where I'll go. Yeah, there are exceptions. There are exceptions. Ghost of Tsushima, up for close and personal. It's a balletic display. Guns, fire some lead over at someone and it might take a chunk of their head out. When we talk The Witcher, you're dancing around using swords, you're using potions, you're getting up close. There's a kind of a balletic display to the combat. The same as Ghost of Tsushima, same as other stuff. When it comes to Cyberpunk, all you're doing is sneakily putting a bullet in people's heads or going in with a bazooka and blow. Actually, that might be more fun. But I think my trouble is I'm not getting the enjoyment from the combat. Even when I went in with the melee build, using katanas and getting up close and personal, it was more just about getting in and rushing them before they could get their guns out. That's a succinct expression of why I prefer a fantasy setting to sci-fi. I like the sheer escapism of the fantasy setting of the elves, the goblins, the dwarves, the magic and the mystery and the delights, rather than the dystopian future of everything's fucking shit and this is where it's going.
Yeah. I feel like basically my main battle with this game is that I'm trying to discover the most interesting way to interact with it. And
likewise,
more often than not, the way that you interact with it is either by shooting or not shooting.
That is the question.
Yeah. and that's disappointing. But at the same time, I'm still very enamoured with the world. All of the stories from main quest to small little side thing have more often than not been very satisfying in the same way that The Witcher was very satisfying to me. I like the idea of, getting a phone call from someone. Yeah, okay, I'll see you later. Meanwhile, I'm off to do this, and I'm going to buy something from there while I'm at it. And then on the way back from there, I'll pop in here and do that.
You just like being able to go out, Rob.
Yeah, I think that's it. I think that's probably it. Absolutely. Yeah, I like being somewhere else, and Night City is somewhere else, even if it is a shithole. It's a very good-looking shithole, though. It very much reminds me of like a cross between Akira and Mega City 1.
And Basildon.
Yeah. let's say, yeah, okay, we'll go with that. All right, I think we've driven that into the dirt. Marcus, did you have anything else, or anyone?
To be honest, I did actually have Fallout Ultimate Knockout as an honourable mention, only because it was interesting to play something that was fun and weird.
You mean
Fall Guys?
You mean Fall
It
Guys?
wouldn't be a game of the year.
Fall Guys?
Fall Guys,
Fallout
that's it, yeah.
Ultimate Knockout, also known as that.
Yeah, actually, I'm looking
Fallout
forward to that by
76 one.
Bethesda. Yeah,
Yeah, they should add a mod for that. Why not?
yeah.
Get on
I mean,
board.
to be honest, I didn't play a whole lot of it, but it was fun to have something to take you away. You know, that whole Takeshi's Castle,
Yeah.
the frustration of playing something online. It's essentially a battle royale Takeshi's
No,
Castle,
I agree. Fall Guys was great fun.
but it was just absolutely frustrating and annoying. But yeah, there's a lot of laughs.
I've
a lot
still
of
not
fun.
played it, but it's on my wish list.
Happy days. I mean, that's that. There's other stuff I've played this year where I don't need to list all of that. I will give a very quick mention to a game I've started playing recently, which is Hades.
Oh yeah, I've heard great things about this.
I've heard
some
great
really good
things.
things.
I have spent. Sorry, I'm just going to check my Steam. Not a lot of time. 24 minutes. So I don't feel I'm qualified to opine on it. Essentially, I got half
No.
a lunch break, and then someone tried to contact me, and he went down from there. What I can say.
Sorry, the guy thing I love about that game. Sorry to interrupt. Is it's Supergiant, isn't it? Who make it? And all of their games have tremendous soundtracks.
The soundtrack so far seems good. The voice acting is actually surprisingly good for what the kind of game is. It's looking slick and cool. I just haven't played enough to judge it. For a lot of people, it's been their game of the year. I don't feel it's going to be my kind of game, if I'm entirely honest. But I'm going to give it another 2 hours. See where I go. It's a roguelike. You die, you respawn, you've skilled up, you've leveled up, you've learnt more, you go back in. I'm not actually a big fan of a roguelike, because I generally find they get too hard for my old man approach to playing games these days.
The Steam
It's an isometric Souls game, kind of, without quite so much pain.
Maybe.
Which, in a sense, is kind of like an old school isometric hack and slash game, anyway.
The Steam refund system works quite well. I used it the other day because we got the Game of Thrones board game adaptation,
Right.
and it killed our game after about 2 hours. We couldn't proceed, so
Yeah.
I just did the Steam refund thing, and I got a refund like that night. So that's worth bearing
That
in
might be
mind.
20 quid back on a game that I'm dubious
You
about.
just have to have. It just has to be like within 2 weeks of buying it and have less than 2 hours. Or I had 2 hours and 2.1 hours, and they refunded it. So that was good to know.
Well, I shall take a look at that then.
Nice.
I've this year I've actually played some VR games. So I'll just quickly mention Star Wars Squadrons first of all, because that game managed to simulate that feeling of, you know, like when you, you'll probably be able to relate to this quite well. You know, when you're like flying into a space station and you've got to like blow up the middle of it
Happens
and
to me
then
all the
fly
time. Yep.
and then fly out of it, like dodging beams and stuff sideways, and that as you just in the nick of time, and then you fly out of it and it all explodes behind you. That's what you get to
Sounds
do.
like Asda around here.
That's what you get to do in Star Wars Squadrons, and so that was very nearly one of my. I think if we'd have done a top 5, it would have been in it. And the other VR game that I've played and that I am currently playing right now, finally because I have a machine that's capable of it, is Half-Life Alyx, which is tremendous. I have to say, I'm still, you know what, I've just ordered a USB extension because I realised I've got my VR set up wrong and I need to have it diagonally opposite.
Yep.
So that, because the problem with when you're playing Half-Life Alyx is when you're moving around, the controllers and the headset don't have direct line of sight to the sensors. So you'll get in a bit of a fiddle. I mean, the way I get around this is I have a fan that gives me an idea of where I am in the room, where it's blowing at me. But
So you have a fan
really
that
mad.
you use to blow you. It's like you're still in the band,
Orienteering.
Rob.
It's like Thor. You know, I used to go off.
I mean, Thor after this.
Your,
Yeah.
your fan used to pull you off.
That's the one. Yeah, no. So, yeah, Half-Life Alyx, though, it's really quite sublime. I've got to the point now where I've been getting grenades, and you have to, like, literally press the button and throw them. And I've got the shotgun, which is wicked, because you put in... You load the shells from your backpack like this.
Yep.
Sorry, listeners. But you
By
pop it
reaching
open
over
to
your shoulder.
Yeah,
To
and
use
then
the
you load them in like this,
vocal description.
and you can close the shotgun shut, or you can just go like that. And
Audio
flick your arm.
descriptive. You flick your arm upwards as if you were closing
A total badass.
Cocking a shotgun.
A shotgun.
Cocking a Winchester.
yeah, a total badass. But yeah, there's like a multi-tool as well, which you use to sort of trace all these lines around rooms. It's such an interesting way of interacting with a game. You know, it's like a real world that. It is a little bit clumsy the way that you teleport around, but you do get used to that. But honestly, the first time a head crab actually flies at your face is horrific. And you've got the guy from Flight of the Conchords going, "Oh, Alex, it looks like you've got one of those stuck to your face. Shoot it off, shoot it off." And,
I didn't realise
it-
we had a Concorde in there. Which one?
it's the,
You got
the
Brett
band
and...
meeting,
Sorry?
the manager.
Oh, the one from Jumanji, the second Jumanji film, or the Jumanji film.
That's the one. Yeah. him.
Oh, God, I can't remember his name, but he's funny. Yes.
Yeah, he's kind of fulfilling the role of like the mate he did in Portal.
Yes,
you know,
I'm
like,
thinking, the voice, the bumpkin voice, yes. Yeah, completely can see
Ricky
that.
Gervais's mate.
Oh, yeah, I've forgotten that was him.
Yeah, so it's kind of got that sort of vibe. So straight away you're like, oh yeah, okay, this is definitely fucking Valve, you know. But yeah, most of all, the only issue I have with it is that you really have to be careful with your ammo. You really have to be quite precise, but there's no reason why you shouldn't be able to. You get like enhancements for your gun that you can make better sights for.
Yeah.
But there's no other way of interacting with enemies. Like there's no melee weapons when they come right up to you, and it's really quite horrific. And I'm like all bent over, like, oh, get away from me! And all you can do. So when a head crab lands on your face, it's like you're fucking shooting yourself in the head. But it's just so cool. You get these gravity gloves very early on, so you're able to yank objects towards you. And then you grab them. So, because otherwise you don't want to be bloody teleporting everywhere to pick things up. If you can see something, you go like that and you're like, zoop. So it's like a little bit of a nod to the old gravity gun. But yeah, I played it the other day and I was like, I'm just going to play it for an hour. And I pulled the headset off and I'd been in there for like 3 hours.
Here's a little reference though. In Half-Life Alyx, Rhys Darby, as just mentioned,
That's
plays
the guy.
Russell. In the Chapter 2 Season 3 Fortnite Battle Pass, a la Marcus, he does the voiceover. There we go.
He's getting around then.
Yep.
But anyway, yeah, I mean, it's difficult to make a case for Half-Life Alyx, and it's why I would never really include it in my top 5, because I just think of VR as something else. I came out of there the other night going, well, that was immensely satisfying, and wow, it's great to play Half-Life again.
Yeah.
Like this. I mean, face it, there was never going to be another Half-Life game unless it was with new technology.
Yeah.
And this is it, really. Anyone asking for Half-Life 3, this is it. It's absolutely 100% Half-Life. But the thing is, the barrier to entry is immense. I mean, at the price they are now, I would say getting like an Oculus... is it Oculus Touch? I think that's great because there's no sensors, there's no cables, and that would be a much better experience than what I'm doing. But I can't justify buying a new headset.
I think that's my trouble. I don't own one, and yet I've got a feeling the way I will go will be the PlayStation VR when it's time.
Yeah, you'll never play this then.
So be it. I'll survive.
It's it's head and shoulders above anything else I've played in VR.
It's head crab and shoulders above. No, at
Yeah,
the end of the day, you say I'll never play this, right? All the Half-Life games and all of that stuff eventually made it to consoles, right?
True.
So
That is true.
So maybe
on next gen. Maybe on next gen they'll be able to do it because there'll be enough power.
Yeah, exactly. PSVR 2 is probably where I'll launch in. It will happen.
Because it is almost like photorealistic, and it's just so mad when you've got two guys shooting at you and you're crouched down in a train cart. You're literally crouching down to avoid getting shot.
Add on the audio description, Rob there was literally crouching down as he said the words literally crouching down to bring the literacy into the whole conversation.
Yeah. But yeah, those head crabs are bastards, and but it just looks incredible, and blah de blah de blah. I could just keep raving about this for ages, but yeah, it's in a different category. I think, like I say, it's not like I prefer video games as an intellectual engagement rather than a physical one. Quite often, I like to relax and play a video game.
I'm sorry. You're just crossing the line into what the fuck? It's video games to me have never been an intellectual engagement.
No, but they are like. I mean, or like a cerebral one, not a physical challenge.
Oh, okay. Sorry, I see your point now.
When you're mentally, but when you're mentally involved in it, it feels physical, which is why they've got away with the whole esports thing.
Yeah, it's like
because when you feel like you've been through an ordeal by the end of it. It's
like reading a book. It's like comparing reading a book to running 100 meters.
Mm.
You know, it's such a different thing. Even the Squadrons game. Although I will say, when you are stood up playing VR, the headset does feel much more comfortable, just because you are in a less comfortable position. If that makes any sense.
Yeah,
it doesn't feel like such a burden. But because when you're sat down, you just want to be like chilled and relaxed. Playing Squadrons actually felt more uncomfortable than playing Half-Life Alyx, which is strange. But anyway, I will shut up now because I've ranted on about VR for long enough. But it's not something I expected to do, but I think getting the computer for Cyberpunk allowed this to happen. And I'm very glad to be getting some use out of the hardware that has mostly been gathering dust for the last few years. Finally, this year, we've had two, I don't know if you'd call them AAA, but at least AA. I'd say Half-Life Alyx is AAA, definitely. It's definitely AAA length.
There's some A's somewhere.
Yeah, but it's a full-on production, both in VR.
Yeah, I mean, Alex,
almost my games of the year.
I suppose, yeah, absolutely. It's all about how much the studios spend on it. But I think that's why I love Mount & Blade and why I'm so keen to put it up there. This is the first game started off as a husband and wife studio. I think they now have maybe tens of developers working on this game over in Turkey, I think it is. It's an indie, essentially. And it's been one of my finest escapes of the year.
It's not your kind of cup of tea, but that's why I feel Final Fantasy is a good game for me, because it's the history involved in it. It's more than just they're doing a HD remake, which it seems like on the tin. It's the guy who's doing it. Tetsuya Nomura, he actually was the original character designer.
Yeah.
So the director for this was, and it was his first gig.
And this is what he wanted to do.
Square. And this is, so he designed all the main characters, the look, the feel, the combat system. He designed the monster design, all of it. And that was all they could achieve in 1997. Yeah. So it kind of felt like this is the way that we felt about the game, but visibly it wasn't. So it was almost like when you're a kid playing with Lego and you're filling in the gaps. Whereas now we've got the technology to fill in all that imaginative gap. And it's crazy. It's just mental. Yeah. I still can't believe it. And especially considering it was almost not a thing. Like it was announced and then there was 7 years of nothing. And then there was the news of that whole studio that had to essentially scrap it and stuff like that. And we were like, oh, it's just bullshit. It's one of those things in development hell, and it would just fade to nothing. And the whole
It happened.
supposed backlash saying, oh, it's going to be a 3-part game. I'm like, the original game was in 3 discs. I find that kind of a poetic element to it. It was literally the first 3-disc PlayStation game. So each one is almost like mirroring it. It's a part 1, 2, and 3.
Yeah.
And to be honest, the way that the original story goes, it's going to be on next gen, because there's no way in hell you're going to be able to realise the entire world on the existing hardware. They could only do the Midgar section in the current technology climate, or previous
That's
gen. But the idea, in the 3rd disc, you can literally travel around the world and go back to Midgar with all of the shit that happens. So the power needed for that is not going to exist. So the people going, oh, it should have been released the whole game on PS4. That would never have happened.
The time
ever.
to do justice to that, I think, is the trick. They need to have built that stuff out first. They're building those first bits out, releasing it in proper scale. It's the production values.
But that's the thing. I feel as though they've got a good footing on it. Anything that's going to be enhanced and stuff now, they've got a good base. Yeah. The engine they've built works really well. The style they're going for works really well. It looks better than the animated movie, which was a sequel to the original game, which came out ages ago, Advent Children. It looks better than that, and that was pure CG. But this is a fucking video game.
I remember the Final Fantasy animated movie, the big one, just called Final Fantasy.
That came.
Never watched it. Was it any good? I bet you watched it.
It was okay. It was a weird Western version of a kind of like a Journey to the Centre of the Earth type.
Totally okay.
Feelings. Yeah, it was alright. Not bad.
All right,
Steve
not
Buscemi
bad and okay.
Version.
Yeah.
Yeah. But Advent Children was, whilst a bit weird, that was fun. Well, that was pure CG. That was like, how you used to love the cutscenes in the video game.
Yeah.
It was essentially like a big extended cutscene ending for like 2 hours.
Nice.
But this part outshone it, and I just can't wait for more. I can't wait for more. Yeah. Can I mention something else? Sort of like an industry honour mention. I haven't actually played this, but we were talking about hardware and stuff. And I think that the Mario Kart Live home circuit,
I would absolutely go and be interested, except for the horribly prohibitive price behind that toy.
Yes, I know. I was gonna mention that. Do you think we'd ever see an end to the Nintendo tax? I don't think
until
we
people
will,
are no longer prepared to pay it. At the end of the day, so the Mario Kart Live is essentially you use sort of AR capability.
It's AR, isn't it? Augmented reality.
Out and you get these little self-driving go-karts, I believe, and gates they have to go through, and you can just put them in your room and they can go under your table and between the chairs around whatever obstacles you put down, and they're self-driving.
And they've got a little camera
drive
over the top,
them
and you
using
see
the
them
game
driving.
on the Switch. But unfortunately, for 2 of you to play, you need 2 Nintendo Switches, 2 carts. The carts, I think, are like 80, 90 quid a throw or something mad.
Yeah.
This is still
the price of a pair of
Big
Joy-Cons.
Boys Rich Toys. Yeah. To buy your kids a couple of them from scratch, you're talking probably a 500 quid layout or maybe 400 quid. And that's why I'm not ready to talk about it, because it's mad.
And also, there are issues with the AR system as well, where it doesn't always recognise certain bits. So it only really work in an open plan loft, which if you're working for Google or Facebook, you're going to have.
Well, so, I guess in the summer it might work in the garden, but right now, I don't think any of my rooms are really big enough.
But I kind of wanted to mention it because I just thought the idea of games making this sort of start to make this breakout.
Well, Nintendo has started it with the Labo,
sort of
the mad bastards that they are. They're a toy company who sell computer games, and I think they have to remain in the market for that. And this is it's desperately important they keep innovating. Yeah.
I just wanted to do that because I thought, well, we've got lots of different facets to this podcast and we're wrapping up the year, so...
Indeed. And are we wrapped?
Sure. I think we'll leave it there, yeah. Thanks for listening to the Not Playing Podcast, part of the Not Listening Podcast Network. where you can also find the Not Watching podcast, where me and Marcus talk about movies and TV, and the Not Listening podcast, where you can hear Adam, Ash and Will talk about all kinds of nonsensical nonsense. You can email us at notplayingpodcast@gmail.com, or you can tweet out or follow us on Twitter at notplayingpod. You can find the show notes for all our shows at notlistening.co.uk, and if you like what you've heard there, please do leave us a review. Anyway, that's all for now. Until next time, stay safe out there.
To agree 'cause I suck at